Hi everyone, this is Kathy Melago, author of In Tune with Students. In this video, which is the sixth video in a series of 7 designed to help you get ready to go back to school, we're going to talk about building community without leaving students out. I know for me, I loved being part of the studios that I was part of growing up. And we did some really fun things. We traveled to conventions, we had social events, and really that was a big part of what I loved. Obviously, I loved being part of the musical aspects of being in the studios, but I also loved being part of the social aspects. However, as I get older and I learn more about social and emotional learning and I learn about other people and other people's needs, I recognize that sometimes we get it wrong in studios. Sometimes the very things that many of us love are actually marginalizing to other people. And that's what I want to talk about in this video today. As someone who's dedicated at least enough of their life to musicianship that they're teaching private lessons now, it's likely that maybe you have been part of these types of events as you've been growing up, and you might really love them, and you might want to pass that on to the next generation of students that you have, or maybe you are teaching in a university or a college and there are expectations for you for your promotion and tenure, that you need to have your students performing at conventions, you need to be bringing in guest artists, you need to be doing all of these different things, also recruiting. And so you might feel pressure to put these things in practice so that you can build up your studio for yourself, for your own goals. So both of those examples, whether it's just you want to do it because you liked it so much and it kind of feeds you, as well as you want to do it because you need to for promotion and tenure, we have to remember that these also impact the students. And it's not necessarily going to be bad, but we have to be mindful of that as we do our planning. And that's what we're going to tackle in this video. As teachers, we need to make sure that our expectations regarding these events, whether they're social or musical, are rooted in the students' best interests. And so there are some different ways that these can actually be marginalizing. And so let's start off talking about the marginalizing. And trust me, we're going to get to how to make it work later on in this video. But ways they can be marginalizing, first of all, is the amount of time that's required outside of whatever your contracted agreement is together. So whether it's your lessons or whether it's your time in your school day or whatever it is, because that impacts students' abilities to have jobs. If students have their own children, or if they have to care for siblings or parents or anything like that, that impacts their ability to do that. If it's an event that takes, say, travel or it's something that's all day Saturday and all day Sunday, that it can impact students' abilities to participate in any religious or cultural things that they have going on. And something that I think a lot of times people don't think about are disabilities and other medical conditions and situations that make it really hard for students to be gone, or for people to be gone for a long period of time. So for example, if it's an overnight event somewhere, that might be impossible or very near impossible for a student who needs to have certain medical, care, or any sort of apparatuses or equipment or anything like that they need to have access to. If they're gone all night long, that's going to be really hard. It also makes it hard for people who need to be participating in different therapies and things like that to be gone. And even if, now I don't have any children myself, but women who are maybe just find out that they're pregnant and they may be struggling with morning sickness and they don't want to tell anybody quite yet that they're pregnant. Not the general public, maybe their spouse knows or their partner knows, but not the general public. It's going to be really hard to share a room with somebody. So we have to make sure that we are being mindful of all of those things when we're planning these types of events. Another thing is some students really are just more introverted. They get their energy from being, by themselves or with a small group of people, maybe one other person or 2 other people, something like that. And they might just, not really want to go carve pumpkins on Friday night. And that's okay. It has to be okay. And so we have to keep all those things in mind and not be offended and not think that they're a bad person or they don't care about the studio or anything like that. We just have to recognize that in the studio, there are people who are all different and they all have different needs. So let's talk about, what can we do? Because these are things that I know for me, and I am more of an introvert for sure, but I know for me, those were things that I actually really loved about being in my studios. So let's talk about how to make them work. The first thing is to plan them early and then stick with the dates and times. So rather than coming up with something like, oh, we're going to do this in a week, if you plan it out at the beginning of the term, the beginning of the semester, early in the school year, you give enough notice. That can help students adjust work schedules if needed. It can help folks maybe find an alternate caregiver or schedule therapies in a maybe around the event, and just be able to put into place the things that they need to put in place to be able to make it work. And then once you schedule them like that, be really careful not to change the date and or the time unless it's like absolutely has to, but really try not to, because that does make it harder on people who need to have that more time to make things actually work. Another thing is to avoid scheduling every hour of every weekend. Some students will have religious or cultural or family celebrations or observances that they want to have time for. So be extremely mindful. If you do need to schedule the whole weekend, try your best not to, but if you have to, be mindful that some students might not be able to participate, or they might be uncomfortable while they're participating because they know they're missing out on something else that's really important to them. Using anonymous surveys can help you find out what your students really want and need. And by having them be anonymous, maybe students don't feel as awkward saying, hey, I'm really okay with like not having any extra events. And then avoid having any consequences if someone's not able to participate. We really don't know what's going on in anybody's life. And we need to make sure that we're focusing in on what the objective is of their time with us. And that is their lessons, and that is their growth as humans that come from their lessons. And we need to just keep that front and center and avoid thinking that they need to want to participate in a studio the way maybe we wanted to when we were students, or the way we might like kind of hope that they do in our studios. So thank you for watching video number 6, and video number 7 will be coming up shortly. Thanks.